Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Queenie Clem with Queenie's Book Talk and Reviews, and I am your literary ambassador. And today I have Max Hiller on my channel today. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How
Thank
are
you.
you?
Just fine.
All right, now tell us a little about yourself.
Um, I'm a former professional chef, lived in New Orleans for what I describe as all the years of my life I enjoyed, but basically half my life. And am now in a position where I can start writing, which I have always wanted to do. I made a mistake of taking a job in food service because I thought I'd have time to write, and all I had to do was time to party. But now I'm older and wiser and finally getting the books written.
Mhm.
And what I've done is I've set a fictional detective series in New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina as a means of highlighting many of the issues that are going on with the city's ongoing recovery.
Okay. And would you like to read a snippet from your book?
Sure. Uh, this is from the latest book. It's called Parish the Thought. And Detective Holland is taken out of his usual area of New Orleans and sent into the deep bayou country to deal with a missing senator's daughter in law. He's having dinner. He meets the local district attorney for dinner, and they're in a bar with the senator and some of his cronies. And it begins with, I locked eyes with the district attorney. Which of the codgers in the far corner is Senator Donovan? He nearly spat his drink on the bar laughing, but recovered before we made a scene. Blue blazer, gray trousers, back to the window. Of course, the patriarch of the town's predators would be sure to keep everyone where he could see them. He might choose to sit in the corner, but he wasn't about to let himself be cornered. I glanced at him in the mirror rather than turn around. Chester Donovan looked to be nearly 70 years old, using my mother to gauge his age. He had closely cropped silver hair and gray whiskers and a pair of piercing blue eyes that glared at me in the bar mirror. He reinforced the image of a southern, oops, lost it. Uh, he reinforced the image of a southern colonel he apparently tried to cultivate. We locked eyes in the mirror for an instant. He said something to his companions, and all but two of them stood up and left the room. I did not take this as some sort of invitation to approach him. The ritual in the mirror simply acknowledged that our future interactions would likely be adversarial. Well, that went well, I sighed as the district attorney tried to understand what just transpired. I really wanted to introduce you to the senator, Gabori pouted. Oh, we just met. We didn't need to sit down face to face for him to tell me to get out of town. And you got all that from looking at Chester in the mirror. Gabori was understandably skeptical of anyone with a skill he himself should possess. And more. I took a sip of my drink before I continued with his education. He sent everyone else away. He doesn't need anyone else at the table to help him run me off. I'm going to assume one or two of them are his bought and paid for judges, and the rest are Donovan family members. Well, two of them were judges. The rest of them are the senator's brothers. I don't recognize the man still sitting with him. Well, the young one is a security detail. The other one is my uncle. Have you ever heard of Felix Devereaux? I was testing Gabor's knowledge of my uncle's reputation. My uncle is a political fixer of the highest order, and everything you hate about backroom deals and the like that you would hate about him. His critics tend to forget to credit him when his meddling benefits them as well. Felix waved me toward their table. I waved back, but I didn't move. So he's the wizard behind the curtain in Baton Rouge, right? Gabori asked. You are correct. I chuckled and patted him on the shoulder before I finally walked over to the senator's table. Mr. Devereaux, I greeted my uncle as I sat down. His thick silvery hair always reminds me of Andrew Jackson, but mostly I imagine him to resemble the devil you meet at the crossroads. Detective Holland? There was a point in time we both anticipated that I would join his firm. My not doing so was still an issue between us. Have you met Senator Donovan? No, I have not. I shook his hand and offered him my business card. The senator was just telling us a funny joke when you arrived. Would you care to share it? And let's call it that.
Okay. And now tell us about your other book, your Cadillac Mysteries book.
The Cadillac Mysteries, they start with the son of the previous chief of detectives, who has been away doing military service, was severely injured and returns to town because his sister has come to tell him that their father disappeared right after the storm while he was doing rescue work. Mm-hmm. And they arranged for this uncle that was just discussed with to get him a commission in the state police so that he can have police resources to try and locate his missing father. And that really is all he's interested in doing. And he quickly wears out his welcome with the NOPD in the first couple of books, just the way he goes about things. He's a little bit too aggressive and too weird. So he ends up having to work alone. And the local new chief of detectives, who was his father's former partner, he starts assigning him oddball cases, the first of which is just to track down a suspect that had been released from jail a little bit too early. They thought he had a justifiable homicide, but he'd used a stolen gun to kill the people. And there seemed to be more connection between him and the people he shot. Mm-hmm. And in the process of that, he finds 2 or 3 other crimes. And it's kind of what happens every time he takes a case. The second case, the second book, one of the local bad guys in town gets killed by his pet dog. Nobody cares. Everybody is happy the man's dead. But Holland gets sucked into trying to figure out how it actually happened, because his sister doesn't want him to kill the dog. And it turns out the dog was actually the murder weapon and not the murderer. And in the process of that, they find all sorts of things, including some answers to his father's disappearance. Moving on to the third book, he and his partner, who had come back with him from Iraq, have opened a restaurant, and their sous chefs gets an offer on her home in the lower Ninth Ward, which is like the city's traditionally poorest part of town. Mm-hmm. And it turns out someone's basically trying to buy up all of the houses in that part of town. And they can't figure out why, because there's nothing worth buying and they're paying too much money for them. And it turns into an elaborate scheme to basically depopulate the city and regentrify that part of town. And then we move on to the fourth book, which is Ghosts and Shadows, wherein his past comes back to haunt him. The people that he used to work for after he left the military, and who he was working for when he got injured in Iraq, have come to town to work for the Department of Homeland Security in a very off-the-books manner that threatens to totally disrupt and perhaps endanger the city, and he has to stop them from doing what they're up to. Mm-hmm. And now we've moved on to Parish the Thought, where he finally gets out of town to repay a favor to this judge that he knows in New Orleans, to find his daughter, who is also the daughter-in-law of the state senator. And it turns out, it gets very complicated, because it starts out with her being the probable victim of a homicide, into becoming the suspect in the death of the person that everyone thought killed her, into possibly being the victim of a serial killer who's been operating in town for years.
Oh, wow.
Nothing is ever simple with this guy.
Yeah. What inspired your books?
What is what?
What inspired your books?
What mostly inspired the books was just living in New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina, that my wife and I lasted almost 6 years after the storm, and just watched the city stumble over itself and become a place that was almost unlivable, is now largely unaffordable for anybody who isn't making at least $100,000 a year, which is not anybody in the restaurant business, mm-hmm. is not anybody in the music business, is not anybody in all the reasons these people moved to town to be there. Mm-hmm. And there was I don't have the academic degrees to write impressive studies and nonfiction books on these topics, and needed to have some way to telling my friends' stories and my own story. And so I just started plugging them in around traditional mysteries. Oh. My wife and I's favorite mystery series is Foyle's War, which uses a similar concept, where the Second World War interferes with this detective in England's solving cases in 1940s England. That he's always running into the Secrets Act, or he's running into something that he normally wouldn't have to jump around.
Mm-hmm. Now, what is your genre, and what attracts you to this genre?
It's obviously mysteries, tossed in a little bit of thriller. I grew up reading mysteries. My stepmother loved mysteries, and she got me hooked on them. It's like putting together jigsaw puzzles in print. And the trick of it also requires a little bit of magic as well in writing them, because the standard rule is you have to give the readers every clue that the detective has to solve the crime. So you have to figure out a way to write a 400-page book without giving away the crime until the very end.
What was the highlights of writing your book?
Honestly, the highlights of it were the points where things finally came together. I don't really have a detailed diagram of how my books are going. My characters have already told me they're not going to follow it if I come up with one. So it's, I'm as much in awe of what's going on as any given reader. Sometimes we have to back up and start over because they've taken me down a blind alley. But in general, they have much better solutions and problems than I ever came up with.
Okay. What has been your greatest accomplishment as an author?
Just getting a book done. I started writing when I was 16 and I didn't publish until I was 54. Later than that, I was 50. By the time I got one actually written, I got all kinds of half novels and quarter novels and outlines and everything. Mm-hmm. But it was a series of things that went wrong that finally put me in a position where I was able to actually start writing and finish a book. So, don't let your life setbacks tell you that you can't do something. Frequently, they're the door to how you're going to get where you're going.
Amen. What do you do when you're not writing?
I read, and I cook. My basic job here is teaching towboat cooks how to cook. That's why I'm sitting in St. Louis right now with this very strange background behind me. So I cook for about 7 hours a day, 28 days out of the month, and get about 3 hours of writing in a day. And then the next 28 days, I'm completely off the boat and I have nothing to do but read and write.
Share something which your readers wouldn't know about you.
I actually like the cats I live with. I'm a dog person through and through, but my last dog passed away from cancer about a year ago, and I've been stuck with my wife's 3 cats, and I'm actually developing some affection for them.
Okay. What are you currently working on right now?
Promoting Parish the Thought. It released on December 2nd, and I've been hard at work ever since. So I'll probably give that till first of the year, and then I'll start writing again on the next book.
Okay. What were your favorite and least favorite things about the publishing journey?
Marketing is always difficult. You put all your sweat and energy into putting something together and then throw it out in a world where 2,000 other people did the exact same thing the exact same day. And you just, you either have to have a plan or a lot of hope that yours is going to be the one that clicks. Again, what I really love about it is I love the stories that I'm telling as much as the readers do.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What avenues are you using to market your books?
I do a lot of mostly social media. I do some direct contact with regional bookstores. Mm-hmm. Pre-COVID, I was able to take long road trips and make personal appeals to bookstores and things, which helped a lot. This lockdown has made it considerably more difficult because now I'm just one more email and 1,000 emails are getting every day from people desperate to sell books.
Mm-hmm. Where can readers find you and your books?
They can find me on Amazon. They can find me pretty much anywhere digitally. It's in Kindle, it's in Apple Books, it's in Nook, and they can order directly from their local bookstores. Online, socially, I have a Facebook group under the name of Cooter Holland, or they can just enter my author name and it'll take them to the same spot. That I try and keep up with things that are going on in New Orleans, things that are going on in my books, things that are going on in my life.
Okay. Is there anything else you would like to add before we close?
No, just read. If you really want to help a small-time author, read a book, leave a review. We live on reviews.
Okay. Thank you for coming in today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for the time.
All right. This is Queenie Clem with Queenie's Book Talk and Reviews. Happy reading. Bye, y'all.
Bye.